Goodness, Anthony, I have missed you.
I've missed you too, Glenn.
Oy,
Not really.
this
Not
is so sweet.
Come on.
Stick around.
I'm Anthony. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality.
Hello, friends, family, global citizens. Welcome to the #1 industries, the #1 hospitality industries podcast, No Vacancy Live. That's Anthony Melchiori. I'm Glenn Hausman, who's also completely burnt out from being on the road, I think, for the last 2 months. Anthony, how are you doing, brother?
I'll tell you, I was on the road last week and I was going crazy, and you've been doing it for 2 months, so I don't know, bro.
Yeah, well, I get to drive home after this interview, which is exciting.
This has been our life the last 2 weeks, 2 months.
Yeah.
We doing the podcast today? No, I'm on the road. Where are you? It could
Somewhere.
be me. I'm in Virginia. Where are you, Glenn? I'm driving.
Yep.
We're not doing the podcast? No, we're doing one tomorrow. Okay. What time? We're doing a free record. Okay. That's been our whole life.
I know, but it's been great. Hey, a big thank you to everybody at Hospitality Maine for allowing me to be your keynote speaker at the closing session yesterday. I had such a great fun time addressing the crowd and helping them understand how you could rethink conventional thinking in the hospitality industry by not going with what all the people are telling you. To actually look at the evidence and the trends and make those important decisions yourself. So that was a whole.
I want to thank my friends at Birch Street for having me as their keynote last week and talking about how to show up for yourself in this environment and how things are changing, but how you can kind of be in front of the change. So
yes, and while we're thanking people, thanks to Red Roof for having me do some hosting with them at last weekend's event at the Broadmoor in Colorado. My goodness, Anthony, built in 1918. That is one of the most iconic properties in the United States. And I had so much fun wrapping myself in the luxury of that old school building.
Well, you know what's so funny? Now that we're thanking people.
Yeah.
Thank you to Cowan Hotels in Boston. They do a teaching program where they certify their employees. In this program was leadership. And I was able to be at the graduation of these,
awesome.
I think it was 13 graduates. They work for the hotel, but they have general managers from Cowan Group. Basically, every week, one general manager teaches a certain curriculum. And after they graduate, I sat and had lunch with them. And I'm telling you, and they get a pay raise. They get a pay raise if they complete the certification. And they were so engaged and so happy. And they do it in such a great way that every single person said that as soon as they learned with a valuable lesson, whatever it was, like literally within 24, 48 hours, they were already implementing it into their environment in the hotel. And it was just like they literally could not talk fast enough. They were talking faster than me on how excited they were for the program. So Cowan Hotels is doing a great job in really developing the employees they have and really not just training, but giving them a certification in a program that they can use every day. And then also, if they ever decide to move on or go to a different company, they have the certification. And it really, I'm telling you, it was one of the best days I've had in a long time, just to see young managers or young employees that are really excited about the business get some real practical training.
Yeah, that's really awesome. All right, so you ready for today's guest? Today should be a whole lot of fun.
I am. We're talking about the waterfalls at the Niagara Falls.
No, Anthony, we're getting religious today. We're going to learn how to water walk and stuff like that.
WaterWalk, all right.
Yeah, these guys.
You already walk on water, baby.
These guys provide the training that you need to be able to walk on water, and by walk on water, I mean be really successful with a hotel brand. Let's welcome the one and only Mimi Oliver, CEO of WaterWalk, joined by President Jim Korroch. Guys, how are you today? So great to see you.
You too. Good morning.
Doing great. Good morning. Thanks for having us.
My daughter's name is Mia. I'm sorry. My daughter's name is Mia, and I call her Mimi.
Perfect. Great name.
That's a great name.
Now, Mimi, I haven't used since the lodging conference in person. That is since that September or October 2019. I remember us hanging out outside and getting to know each other a little bit. And Jim, I got the pleasure of interviewing you at this year's lodging conference. And the reason why I bring that up is because right before the lodging conference, you guys were really out there talking about some of the major changes that are afoot over here. And it's really exciting to see what you're up to. Mimi, first of all, congratulations on everything over there.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We have a lot going on. It's great.
Well, when you say congratulations on everything over there, explain to the audience what that means.
I'm going to let Jim explain it to everybody, because when we did a short video with each other at the lodging conference, he really explained it so well, how the company is changing, how it's better adapting, how it's trying to stay ahead of that competition in the extended stay category. Because as you know, the founder of WaterWalk, Jack DeBoer, created the entire industry. And Jim, I believe you partnered with him in 95 to create Candlewood Suites, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. Really dating me, Glenn, but that's exactly right.
I did that on purpose because I really like my guests to feel on the defensive.
Yeah, thank you. No, I actually, Jack and I go back actually to 1990. We met each other at Michigan State University. He was a generation ahead of me, but through the hotel school and through Michigan State, got to know Jack and said, man, this is clearly a dynamic, innovative person and that I want to be around. So he was gracious enough to let me start to learn the hotel business in one of his previous brands, Summerfield Suites. And then right midway through the 1990s, we created Candlewood Suites together. And so just having the opportunity to be so close to an icon like that, to work with him, to see how he walks through hotels. And of course, Jack was the type of leader that breezes right by the front desk when he comes in to check on one of his hotels. He waves, but he's heading for housekeeping because he knows that's where the heart of the house is. That's where the heart of the hotel is. And if you want to get a real sense if a hotel is operating well, that's the place to be. And that's one of just many, many lessons that I learned from Jack, and we certainly miss him today.
Yeah, it's just interesting when he was creating Candlewood. Like, we need to go back to that moment in that time when someone as visionary as him is creating that, because everyone was betting against him. Everybody thought he was crazy. That won't work. And now look, everybody wants to be in the extended stay business.
Yeah, it's so interesting, and we hear this at conferences, people just getting excited about extended stay and like it's something new. I mean, it's been around for since the 1980s when Jack invented Residence Inn, and certainly has gone through some iterations along the way, but the basic concept continues to be.
Well, they weren't the cool kids. They weren't. Somehow you have to be anointed a cool kid to be a cool kid. So that brand and those kind of brands weren't the cool kids. Now COVID anointed them cool kids.
Yeah, I think you're right on with that. I mean, clearly the space works. We did the WaterWalk brand with the 8 legacy properties that are open, did terrific over the COVID time period. I mean, RevPAR shares in the 180s to 210s against a very, very strong comp set. So, really, really performed well and continues to.
That's excellent. Mimi, let's bring you in here. You're Jack's granddaughter, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
I am.
Right. So you grew up steeped in this environment. So obviously it's natural that you would participate in one of these brands. So how are you feeling today with the responsibility of carrying on his legacy? That's pretty heavy weight to bear.
It is, but it's an honor. Truly, it's an honor. And I just am so grateful for this opportunity. It was wonderful to learn from Jack, work alongside him, and just soak up as much as I could about, the industry. I mean, truly, he's the legend, right? He did all, created these 5 brands. And so it is truly an honor to carry on the legacy with this 5th national brand. And I truly believe it is Jack and our team's best brand yet. I say that Jack said that too, along the way. We really believe it. I mean, he created, as we've talked about, he created extended stay back in the 80s. We are here to create flexible lodging. So we're all about flexibility. It's here. You're seeing this, all over the place now. Apartments by Marriott just launched. I mean, this whole, flexible model really is here to stay. But again, Jack was ahead of the curve. And so we're here to, create this. And I really believe that 10, 15 years from now, flexible lodging will be mainstream. And so we're really happy to be ahead of that curve.
Do we have any pictures of any of the hotels?
No, not loaded up, but maybe Dr. Producer
Yeah.
Suzanne backstage could go grab some. But I want to bring to the attention what Mimi just said: flexible lodging. We've been talking about service departments. We've been talking about extended stay. This is kind of an advancement more towards those alternative accommodations that we've been talking about here a lot on No Vacancy Live. And the whole idea here is, Mimi, tell me if I'm wrong, but you could stay, you preferably not transient, up to 30 days, more than 30 days. And then you've got now combining the extended stay with more traditional type of an apartment, at least the way we consider it, in order to stay even a year or more. Very clever. Haven't seen that before.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, we really are different than extended stay. We're extended stay because our average length of stay is 280 nights.
Wow.
So we are, we're again not the typical extended stay hotel. Because of that, combining this multifamily element into our model. So we have, that unfurnished, and as I think Jim mentioned with you last time, we are inventing the unfurnished hotel room, and we're really excited about that.
Yeah, Jim, tell us a little bit more about that, and don't feel shame about going over stuff that we did at the lodging conference. That's 2 months ago, like 5 years ago.
Well, I think to just level set everything, Glenn, the original WaterWalks and Jack's business premise here and the investment premise was that, as we know, multifamily apartments, generally you can have an apartment building right next to an extended stay hotel. And at the end of the day, the apartment on exit is going to sell for more than what the extended stay hotel sells for because it's less risk adverse, right? So it's more risk adverse. That will allow an investor to pay more money for something like that purely because of the length of stay or the leases and so on that are in place in the apartment. So that was Jack's thesis, being an extended stay hotel guy. How can we mix these two things? How can we improve the investment of a hotel by extending the length of stay and reducing the risk on the property? So the original concept was 2 buildings, which are the current WaterWalks today. One building is what we call live, and that's the unfurnished area, or call it apartment side, and then the other building is extended stay hotel. And what we realized, the properties perform terrifically, but hey, we want to grow a big brand here. We want to be in the franchise business. We want to build a bunch of these on our own balance sheet. And there were some resisting factors to allow us to really scale the business. And those really were 2 things. First of all, the overall cost of the project. This is a project that, if you can imagine 150 some of these units, it took at least 5 acres to find the good land for it.
That's considerable.
And it's considerable. And how do you do that? There's some places you can do that in the country, but especially today, it's just very difficult. The other piece of it was zoning. These original properties had to have a dual zoning, a multifamily zoning, and had to a commercial hotel zoning as well too. And again, yes, you can get it done. Clearly, Jack proved you could get that done, but from a scaling standpoint, it's a challenge.
Right.
And
but if you're going to a jurisdiction, that's not necessarily what's set in place at the time.
That's right. And so you go through zoning changes, and frankly, in a lot of places, apartments are taboo. Towns have enough, cities have enough of them, and they don't want any more. And so have to get away from that. So now what we've created is the WaterWalk today is 1 building. It's live and stay are in the same building. It's on less than 3 acres of land. And it has the type of returns, gross operating profit margins that not only rival but exceed the best in class of extended stay hotel too. Because just imagine, from an operating standpoint, basically half of your property are people that don't need a lot of attention and rooms that don't need a lot of attention, right? I mean, the flow through in this model is just incredible, which allows the operating profit margins to be significant.
So I have 2 questions. One, why the name WaterWalk? That one first. Where'd you come up with the name?
So, frankly, there's no science to it, which is exactly what Jack would say. It was basically a development in downtown Wichita that the DeBoer family has owned for a while, called WaterWalk. So Jack just took it out of his pocket and said, this is going to be my new brand, and he already had all the branding and everything done. So, again, no real science to it, but it's worked pretty well.
Does it need to be near water?
It does not, but a couple of our properties are. So
Maybe I was going to say maybe they just put out a nice glass of water for you when you
Now, do you sell, like if somebody wants to stay 2 nights, is there ability to sell for a couple of nights, or that's just not in the equation?
absolutely, absolutely, yep.
And
We
But
do
if you're looking at
single
this
nights.
model, Jim, right, you don't want to be in that position because that's not really a good, efficient use of your resources.
Yeah, absolutely. That's true. I mean, and part of this going to the one building is we've significantly repositioned the brand to compete with high-end, so upscale extended stay. So target competitors on that side are Residence Inn, Homewood, Staybridge.
Yep.
Those are the competitors on that side too. So you're right. We certainly will take one or two night stays, but that's not our preference at all.
Yeah, I
No,
fell in love with the extended. I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
I said I fell in love with the extended stay. I built the first urban stay bridge in Times Square back in back in the day, and I just love the brand.
I stayed at a Candlewood in Times Square once.
What's that?
I stayed at a Candlewood in Times Square.
Yeah, right around the corner.
Yep. So going back to the extended stay, the stay model, the reason why I said what I is to inform the listeners and watchers out there is because the hotels are built with the economics and the staffing and the housekeeping stuff to only to really maximize its opportunity at the 5+ night ratio. If you start selling all your rooms for 1 or 2 nights, it puts out of whack the operational model. So as hoteliers go forward to build these properties, and if you look at the current pipeline, new construction pipeline with early planning and pre-planning, we're talking about 1/3 of the pipeline is focused in this. So there's a lot of danger for folks just getting this business that don't fully understand it's not a transient hotel. They could really damage their profit margin. So Jim, as you're putting your feet back into the major hospitality industry, obviously you're selling franchisees to the folks that we were at the lodging conference. You probably have to be very clear on the benefits and opportunities and the rules of engagement, as a lot of owners are still learning how to maximize extended stay for their portfolio.
You nailed it. And this is frankly an opportunity area for us because I will tell you, extended stay, I don't think this is a surprise, but extended stay hotels have really gotten away from what's made them successful in the past, and that is a direct sales effort, building relationships with companies in the area, bringing in project business. I mean, truly going after extended stay. When you look at some of the big brands right now, the average length of stay, without mentioning names and some of the big brands is it's 4, 5, 6 nights max. And as Mimi pointed out, we're over 100 nights because we've got this laser focus on extended stay, and that's what makes it all work. That's what brings the operating profit, this robust operating profit, and so on. If you're just building an extended stay hotel, which hey, the fact is they're more expensive to build, right? There's more square footage involved with it. So if you're just building an extended stay hotel and selling it in a transient model, it's trouble.
Yeah.
So if I have one of your hotels, the hardest thing to do is direct sales, right? Backyard sales, get out there and have a real effort. So how does your brand support the hotel and the salespeople at the hotel and the ownership at the hotel to get that extended stay?
Yeah. So first of all, our model, although it's very small, staffing model is just 8 to 10 full-time equivalents at the property. One of those is a full-time director of sales. So one of those people have full-time responsibility for calling on businesses in the marketplace and getting to saturate them, go department by department, the whole thing that Jack and his team invented in the 80s. Additionally, Anthony, what we have is our national sales team in Wichita, Kansas, and we talked about the unfurnished side or the live side of the property. 100% of the business that's generated there comes through Wichita. So really, the director of sales through our call center in Wichita. So the director of sales at the property is only responsible basically for selling the furnished side, which might be 70, 80 rooms. I mean, a very, very small hotel. And that's one of the benefits we bring potential franchisees to. Of course, you can imagine sitting across the table from us, and maybe you're thinking about building a Residence Inn or building a WaterWalk, and say, well, hey, Marriott brings, XX percentage of reservations are guaranteed to come through the central reservation system. And well, how can you, WaterWalk, how can you compete with that? Well, 56% of our room nights come through our national sales team in Wichita that the franchisee, the property doesn't even have to mess with. And so it's a very compelling model.
Interesting. Mimi, let's go to you. How are you identifying the right people to kind of sell that model? Because it's very different. If you get a regular DOSM that's been selling your typical hotel, they're coming pre-programmed in a sort of way, and you're not really focused on the unfurnished part of it. So you can't really tap into people that are doing that kind of stuff. So where do you find these hybrid people, or how do you get them to think in the right way to maximize the profitability?
Yeah, absolutely. It really is about that right mindset and that right person. So we are looking for that more, hit the pavement type of salesperson. You really have to go, and because we're not, a nationally recognized brand yet, we will be soon, but we really have to go out and find that business and uncover that business and knock on the door. So it really is finding that type of salesperson. And they can come from the big brands. They can come from, even outside of hospitality, but again, it's really that mindset of getting out, finding this business, being very persistent, to basically convert them. But I will say we have a very, compelling, business model and room, and with our washer and dryer, and we do have a great value proposition. So, it's, I'd say, fairly an easy sell to convert these, guests over to WaterWalk.
And Glenn, you were kind of asking the same question that I had on my mind about salespeople, because there's two types of salespeople: really exceptional and really bad. I haven't found a mediocre salesperson in my career. They're either literally stars that you just say, I don't know what that person's doing, but just don't even talk to them. Leave them alone. And then there's the other ones like, all right, they got to go. Mediocre doesn't work in sales, right? You're terrible and you fire them, or they're exceptional. So is there any type of national sales program for hotels from any of the brands that really, because this is a easy sell, but a tough sell in the sense of there's like, you have to know where you're looking to find this kind of business. Like, it's really, and then once you get into that kind of business, you've got to make those people your family. Like, those contacts you get in that kind of niche, they've got to become your, like, literally like your blood. So is there any recognition around kind of really a sales program to get, because I imagine your salespeople are the best, but if I'm an owner and I bring in a salesperson, 6 out of 10 are probably going to fail, and I'm being generous.
Yeah, I think you're real accurate with that comment. I mean, I can tell you that the way that we look at it, Anthony, is it's a brand responsibility. We get that everybody doesn't know how to do this from day one. So if a franchisee is going to manage their property, we take it upon the brand. It's the brand's responsibility through WaterWalk University to inundate that person in full extended stay. What does it mean to be an extended stay salesperson? How is it different than being in transient sales? What do you do when you identify a company? It's not, if you go to a company like Farm Bureau, or name any of the big companies that might be out there. If a salesperson comes back and says, I've got one contact, I mean, you clearly know they're not doing the right, because you've got so many different departments. You probably have 15 different departments in these larger organizations. And our director of sales, needs to have a relationship with all of them, and they don't know that unless they're taught that. To your point, and so that's why the education is crucial. And you're right, it is not for everybody. Extended stay sales.
I always look at a salesperson. Do you ever see the person on the beach with that little metal detector, and they have the headphones on, and they're going through the beach, right? And everybody thinks they're crazy. That's a salesperson. Right. If you got that mentality, it's like you're walking for 8 hours and maybe you find a fork, but there's some thrill about you finding that fork on the beach that's exciting. And salespeople are just wired different. And so it's so wonderful to hear what you just said about your brand, because I think that's the most important thing about your brand, is that you're there. Because so many times that and I won't mention any, when I take over a hotel, I'm developing it from scratch, or I'm turning it around. they sold the owner on all these great things and they're going to support them. And then they tell the owner, backyard sales, you got to get a salesperson. They don't train the salesperson. They don't teach the salesperson about their product. And they go out and back your sales, and the salesperson, fails. And so it's really, I would imagine that's probably your biggest selling point.
Well, the other part to that, it also, Anthony, is that it's economics, right? What is the cheapest cost of a reservation, somebody to come into one of our hotels, anybody's hotels, and it's
Third party
direct.
can.
It's direct.
Is that the wrong
Yeah.
answer? Is that the wrong answer?
Yeah. Well, so I mean, it's directly, they're booking it, they're putting it into the system. It's not coming through GDS. It's not coming through all the other things that are so costly. It is the most efficient means of a reservation in the property. And so, we're just not going to overlook it. It's that important.
Wow. And speaking of things not to overlook, I want to go back to you in that business model, because when you're selling it to the folks that are going to make that big financial investment, the conversation's got to be a little bit differently than putting up, let's say, a typical select service leveled mid-tier extended stay hotel, right? My guess is, tell me if I'm wrong, your startup costs are going to be a lot more because of the construction of the additional rooms that are unfurnished for those longer term stays, but you probably get better cash flow by filling those up, which probably compensates in some sort of way. I mean, I don't get it. How does it actually go?
Yeah. So we, again, back to Jack's sort of thesis is that
Yeah.
this is a recession resistant model. And we got to prove that out through the pandemic, or pandemic resistant now.
Yep.
But we really, it's all about that stability of, that those longer term stays, right? So our occupancy in April 2020, when the hotel, industry plummeted to 20% or so, WaterWalk was above 60%.
Yep.
So we, the worst of the worst. So again, it's back to this, and that's what we say to owners, prospective franchisees. This is really about, we're very different than that select service, that, even extended stay models, because of our business model and real focus on this live segment, the unfurnished hotel room and so forth. So just, having that kind of stability in the hotel and the occupancy and the revenue and so forth, really flows down to your bottom line. And so that's, a pretty strong pitch for us, and really showing that recession resistance in the model. And owners get it. They really do.
And it's easy, Glenn, from a capital standpoint,
Right.
I believe, because I've had this experience, I don't know if you guys agree, it's easier on the room because you don't have somebody moving your furniture every day. You don't have somebody knocking it over with their luggage. You don't have people checking in, checking out, and beating up the room. People tend to, when they're extended stay and they're staying in the room, they treat it like their home. So they're more gentle with the room, and the room is treated better. Would you agree or disagree with that, guys?
Absolutely agree.
Absolutely.
I mean, one thing we can share is, Airbnb, we partner with Airbnb, our properties are all listed on their site, and they're a great revenue generator for us. And they generate long stays for us. And so as an example, these types of guests that are staying there for, let's call 30 plus, they actually will bring the trash downstairs and say, where do I put my trash? They are, they're just they're living there. They're making it their home. And so there's a lot less wear and tear and just more care with that unit in that room.
So if I stay in a hotel for a long time, I take all my garbage and put it outside the door.
So can you make that wear and tear as part of your sales discussion, in the sense that if you're running a transient hotel, you have to replace everything after X amount of years versus this will be Y amount of years? Is that something you're able to do?
We haven't until today. I hadn't thought about that, but I think we're gonna add that to the pitch. Thanks,
Overall
Glenn.
cost of ownership, right?
Our new franchise salesperson.
You're welcome.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, how is the difference? And either one of you just jump all this one. How are the services and amenities at each of the properties? Because if you're in one building, the live people are going to want to be enjoying the amenities of the stay people, right? So, how does all of that work for you, and what are even some of the offerings and amenities that you would have?
Amy, you want to?
Yeah,
Sure,
Maddie, why don't
I'll
you go with
jump in.
this one? Yeah.
So, yeah, so we really are a hotel in the sense of offering,
Mhm.
hotel services and amenities, but we're extended stay. We don't offer
Yep,
full F&B or
of
anything.
course.
But we have, on purpose, of course, but
Mhm,
we have a pool at most properties. We have a great outdoor living space,
mhm.
and that gets used quite a bit at the properties. At our Wichita property, we have, beer and wine on tap, which is part of your room card. So that's a great amenity to both the live and stay side.
That's great. So that's just
Again,
self-serve, right? You just go,
self-serve, yep,
"Beep,"
you get
get the
2
glass
pours
of
per
wine.
day, so,
Oh,
the
really?
guests
That's
guests
included?
love it. Yep,
Oh.
included.
Hey, I
And
Absolutely.
gotta
it's
do
included in
business.
the
Stay at one
price.
of their hotels and sell your pours to the, other
Wait, hold on a second. That's included?
It's included.
That's amazing.
Yep, so, but again, you get stopped at 2, so we have a pretty efficient system down with this, key card system,
Can you buy a
but
third?
yeah, you can buy a third.
Yeah, cool.
Absolutely. So we have, yeah, I mean, from the live perspective, the real appeal of living at WaterWalk is that you do have access to these hotel amenities. So you have 24/7 front desk. You don't get that when you live in an apartment.
Right.
You have, again, the total flexibility of, lease terms. So we offer really much shorter term leases on that side, or, terms and use. We have a great community space indoors as well. So again, this whole, bleisure customer, you want to be able to have a great place to work, and sit down with your laptop. So we have this, great coffee bar that gets used all the time. It is one of the absolute, top highlights of the properties and one of the guests' favorite amenities. So sit down, grab a coffee, great place to work, right there, and socialize.
Right.
So just, a lot of, again, different options from amenity standpoint, but again, very efficient and focused on, not adding onto the cost, ongoing costs onto that owner's,
Yeah.
Just
That
just add
that
to that.
Yeah, what was that, Jim?
Just was going to add, we've taken a real focus on the fitness center as well too. It's not something we've just shoved in a corner somewhere. It's
Right.
an elevated fitness center, lots of light, lots of square footage, and that's we know that that person staying for an extended amount of time wants that. And additionally, we have markets in all of the properties as well too. Hey, everybody has this great full kitchen upstairs, and so there are things that they can buy in the market, or of course be doing their Uber Eats or whatever else they want to do too.
Right.
Yeah, the market to me, I found, is probably the most important thing in a hotel today. Having a really efficient market is the most important thing because we're all kind of getting used to not having room service, and a lot of us don't want to sit in restaurants. But the market, you can literally, if it's a well thought out market, you can get a healthy option. You can get it
Right.
yourself after you check in. I mean, Glenn, I'm sure you
I've got
do
a
it.
story for you as soon as you're done talking. Yep.
So it's very efficient. I want to hear your story.
Yeah. So
But is it like a bedtime story? Like you usually read to me at night?
once upon a time, little Glennie was hungry and staying at a hotel. On Sunday night, I was able to hitch a ride to Denver, and we stayed at the wonderful, and it was wonderful, the Westin Hotel at the Denver airport. And I got there late, and I needed some food, and I ordered room service, but I had to wait like 35 minutes for it, which is typical. Again, not a slam at the hotel. It's just the way things are. I didn't want to wait that long. I didn't feel like I had control over it. I didn't necessarily need the person coming into my room and seeing the mess I'd created, even though I just checked in, all of that kind of stuff. I'm pretty cool with when I walked down and said, hey, what kind of options do you have? If I could have just gotten it myself and been eating in like 5 or 6 minutes, that would have been, good. So I think it's a real win-win when you see stuff like that for the customers.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we got pictures. All right. So
Now just a
that's why-
commentary here. This is all generation one. So this is what's open today is what you're seeing.
Yep.
And so that's these are all
Can you send us generation 2?
you'd be happy to.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately for a live show, that probably won't work.
If somebody sends an email to Suzanne, we can make it happen.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. We could always get
Anthony,
it up.
I'm in a hotel room. I can't figure that out on the spot. Come on.
You know what's so funny? I was just thinking, only on a hospitality, travel, hotel podcast could you have 2 people sitting in a room with beds behind them and it'd be perfectly normal.
I know.
Exactly. So true.
I'll tell you what, I had to do some pillow fluffing because Suzanne was not happy.
Could you imagine a couple of years ago somebody doing a radio show and they're doing it with their beds in the back? That would be the weirdest thing in the world.
Right. All right. So this is the new version,
This is
correct?
Gen 2.
There
Yeah,
we go.
you got
Yeah,
it.
this is
That's
Gen
right.
2.
Yeah. So you can, see that this is the outdoor area Mimi was talking about.
All right. That's really beautiful.
Yeah. There we go.
All right,
Wow.
that is awesome, and I'll tell you what. Making an observation, and we'll try to use little word pictures for the audio only audience. It really looks like apartment living. It doesn't
Right.
have that extended stay. We're not sure
Residential.
what we are in a design sense. It really feels like it's built for people being there a long time.
Yeah, I absolutely love it, and you can see that it's it's a version 2. You can see it.
Yep. So
Yeah.
what? How is the investor community responding at this point? Because it's an idea they're familiar with, yet completely different.
Yeah, no, everybody gets it. They especially when you look at the business case and the investment analysis. I mean, we had Jack's thesis. We always thought would be one that would be more valuable than an extended stay hotel on an equal basis. The banks thought that, so we got some very attractive financing, but we never had one that really traded. So to an arm's length transaction to get the sense of that, and we did that about 6
Yeah.
months ago. Sold a WaterWalk, and it was very clear by the sale price that it was a good 200 basis point bonus
Right.
than what an extended stay hotel would be, and that's millions of dollars, right?
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I mean, talking to the investors, when you talk about the simple model, and that's what we hear from everybody all the time, keep it simple. As Jack always said, keep it simple. So that's why we're not big into the F&B. Really drive this as a machine for bottom line profitability, and so great attention from potential investors.
My favorite words in this business, and Glenn's heard me say it to nauseum: keep it simple. Keep it simple.
Oh, I
Because
thought it was Glenn gets upgrade. I was confused.
That too.
well, Glenn does get. Listen, you've upgraded our industry, so we all deserve to give you an upgrade. How's that?
Anyway, please get down. I love it. I love it. Great response. Go on.
So I learned from a family here in New York City that owned hotels. They were SROs. They renovated them, and their typical hotel was 125 to 175 rooms, no food and beverage, clean. I worked for one hotel, the Lucerne Hotel on the Upper West Side, that literally did not have a capital improvement plan for 10 years. And when they did one, I was like, we really don't need one. It was simple. They just cleaned everything. They took care of everything, and they just focused on the guests. And to this day, it's one of my favorite hotels because I learned from that hotel and those owners. You can literally go to any one of their hotels and eat off the basement floor because they focused on housekeeping. Again, one of the things I say every day is the most important department is housekeeping. If my housekeepers like me, the hotel's doing well. If my housekeepers hate me, my housekeeping's failing and everybody hates me. If my housekeepers love me and everybody else hates me, I don't care because my hotel is being well run. So that is the philosophy when you get into this hotel. And one of my businesses, in my consulting business, is that's what I do almost on a daily basis is I keep people from making bad decisions in overcomplicating this business. Because at the end of the day, it comes down to I want a good bed. I want it to be clean. I want a hot, powerful shower. And I want to be able to make my choices when I want to make my choices. And your brand really allows that.
Yeah, absolutely. Anthony, it's funny because Jack's number one philosophy besides can do was keep it simple. And I really learned that from him and I believe firmly that is one of the main reasons why all these brands have been successful. And, Jim and I continue to look at each other and say, how can we keep this simple? Elevate it continuously, but really focus on what this guest really needs and really wants and nothing more, right? We don't need to add all the bells and whistles. It's, a great fitness area, great coffee, like you said, great bed, a great space that's, really feels, spacious, washer and dryer, some of those key elements, but at the end of the day, keep it simple.
One of my questions is seeing you both seeing this grow and seeing the hotel business and seeing what you're doing in the hotel business. And that now finally people are talking about what you've been doing for a very, very long time. Why that vision wasn't picked? Because we all know in this industry, everybody likes copying from everybody else, right? Why wasn't that picked up so much quicker? Why is it taking now in a pandemic for people to see that vision? The profitability is there, the simplicity is there, the ease of market is there. What's taking so long for everybody else to pay attention?
It's a great question.
I think the simple answer is it's different. We're not just doing another extended stay hotel. It's something that's different, and change is not easy.
No,
Yeah.
and I'll tell you, it was really smart to move in a different direction, because now that the mainstream hospitality business is creating these products at different tiers and selling them to that same franchisee community, in order for you to make those inroads against those gigantic forces, you really need to keep innovating and pushing it forward. Speaking of innovation, Rolando is saying, hey, you need to add pickleball courts to the roof. So in Vegas, it's a new thing, but it's a new thing everywhere. I'm told I have to play pickleball.
That's a great idea to have a pickleball court at one of those kind of hotels. That's not a bad idea.
No,
We are considering it.
Yeah,
Jim
so
and I just had that
Anthony,
conversation.
yeah, so I'm sitting in Atlanta right now, and Mimi is on her way to Atlanta. We have a board meeting here, but even more important than that, something we want to talk about is we bought a Gen 1, built in the late 80s, Residence Inn hotel, Marriott Residence Inn hotel,
interesting.
and that Jack built, and we are converting that to a WaterWalk.
Awesome.
And one of the, we haven't touched on this yet. I guess we talk about this so much. One of the key things about WaterWalk is there's a washer and dryer in every room.
What?
Every room. Every room has a washer and dryer.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So as example, when I'm staying at a WaterWalk, I know I just bring one set of workout clothes if I'm there for several days, because I can just throw them in the washer every day. So the reason I say that is these Gen 1 Residence Inns have the room in every single room, because there's so much square footage for us to put washers and dryers in every room.
Well, that's a really good solution, because I just bring my one set of workout clothes, just leave them in my suitcase.
Mine are hanging up over here right now, but we're the first ones, and we have several of these in the pipeline. We're the first group that's actually taken one of these boxes, these Gen 1 boxes, and Gen 2, Gen 3, Gen 4, and moving it upstream instead of taking it and moving it down, which is where it tends to go. We are making, buying it right and making a significant investment in it, which, by the way, we're in Sandy Springs, Georgia. Good luck buying a 5-acre piece of ground anywhere around here for something that just doesn't cost you an arm and a leg.
Right.
It's an interesting model to look at, and we're pretty excited about.
So how many rooms is that property, and are you able to create the new model for WaterWalk with the mix of both?
Yes, 156 rooms, and this whole conversation, the reason it stirred in my mind was, if you remember those Gen 1 Residence Inns, they have the pickleball court. I'm sorry, the sports courts, right?
Yeah.
And so Mimi's idea, like, let's turn those into pickleball courts. So it's something we're looking at.
Well,
and
pickleball, listen, you can talk about everything that's happening in the market right now with crypto and all that stuff. Is it here to stay or not? But I'll tell you right now, pickleball's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. So it will be an amazing thing to see that within a brand. I mean, I'm literally inching my way to pickleball. I'm getting real close to getting all into pickleball.
All right, so let's switch from pickleball to profitability. Kyle is asking.
Pickleball is profitable.
Rents in 60% of markets have gone down during the last 6 months, although they're much higher than they were a couple of years ago. Is this the trend that should worry extended stay long term as supply goes up? I kind of feel like they're two different businesses. How do you all see it out there?
Mimi, you want to jump at that?
Yeah, so it's interesting. We actually we hosted a leadership sort of offsite strategy session last week, and we brought in some CBRE economists to sort of learn about, where these macro trends are going from their perspective.
Right.
And one of the things we talked about was rents. And yeah, definitely rents have come back down in the past, let's call it 6 months or so. But their view was that it will, vacancies will continue to be very low.
Right.
With apartment rents, just that there is increasing demand. And if you think about it too, the housing, bubble, let's call it, or a lot of this, the housing market is softening. So that could also likely lead to increased demand for rentals. So we do feel pretty confident.
Affordability because of interest rates from home ownership. So pushing more into apartment as well.
Right. That makes sense. And I also think about the way, let's just look at the younger generation for a second, and combining it with the whole notion of digital nomad, which I still believe is going to become more popular. Plus, younger folks haven't been sold on the American dream of the house and the picket fence. They don't feel the same way about that. I think long term, having those rentals that could last like 4, 5, 6 months because I want to hang out in an area versus maybe I just want to stay somewhere 30 days. I think that's pretty viable. And I'm seeing, I forgot what country it is. One of the South American countries are now doing visas for digital nomads specifically. So I think this is a big trend that we're going to see here. Kim says she's a realtor and she agrees. So,
you know what's interesting? Never in my life have I known people that, like, where do you live? Well, I don't really live anywhere. And like, what do you mean? Well, I travel for work. So I just kind of, when I'm not working, I just have a long-term stay. And then my next project, especially in the production business, I go to my next city. And, if I'm there for a week, they put me up. And if I don't have a place to go next, I'll just get something for 30 days. So I was like, I've never met people before. And I'm not talking about one. I'm talking about like several people I know don't have apartments, don't have homes. They just live, like you said, they're a nomad.
Well, look at what we're doing right now. Glenn and I are in hotel rooms, right? And this is a live podcast where Wi-Fi is pretty damned important, right? To be working right. And we have the ability, it's just commonplace to have reliable Wi-Fi now that we can do this kind of thing in. It's just, the world has changed.
Yeah, matter of fact, you don't even think about not having reliable Wi-Fi anymore. It's like, whereas before we used to go in and say, oh, how's your Wi-Fi? And now it's just like, it's like we were talking before. It's like having water or a sink or a bed. It's like having good Wi-Fi that works at the speed that we all work at is critically important. I don't think any of us would put our businesses or our reputations on the line to be working from hotels where we're in the middle of a Zoom that's important for our company that doesn't work typically. And so it's not about our comfort. It's about us looking silly. And me and Glenn have done our share of looking silly on the podcast in the first year of going to bad Wi-Fi, and we look like idiots.
Yeah, that combined with trying to figure out how to do a live show with multiple people in one location was not a good adjustment.
Near a wall on a roof surrounded by water, and I was having a meltdown and Glenn was having a meltdown, but we were quietly melting down at the same time.
Yeah. The memories.
They're good for each other.
So what is the investment community thinking about right now when it comes out there? Are you being received with open arms? What's happened, guys, since the lodging conference I think that was really your coming out party for 2.0 over here?
Yeah, our perspective, our strategy has been a very focused approach. We've been specifically courting Marriott and Hilton franchisees, many of the names that you'd know that have a robust experience and extended stay, and those conversations have gone very, very, very well, and excited about our pipeline. I will tell you the reality of today, though, because of the economic headwinds. Hey, let's face it, debt service has almost doubled, right? Yeah. In the last several months here, and so generally, I mean, we're opening 7 properties next year, right? So we're a little different than most, but most people, if it isn't in the ground right now, it's not going in the ground anytime soon until we're able to see what's really clearing. So our mission right now is educating the franchise community, investment community out there about what WaterWalk is, getting them ready. So when things do ease, that we've got a seat at the table as they're considering franchises.
Yeah, a notion just struck me. You have 7 projects that are going to be opening up next year, and a lot of the major brands. This particular brand that I'm here, when they first announced that brand, they had 100 in the pipeline, and their whole idea, and again, I'm talking about traditional hotels for a second, is you got to have that critical mass. I don't think you have to have that, because if you have a hotel in Wichita and 100% of the business is like basically coming direct or through your on the ground salesperson, that kind of releases you from having that long-term issue, right? Am I right about that or not?
Yeah, I think you are. I think when you get scale like that, what really happens is you're generating marketing dollars, right? That you can really put out there. But you're right. I mean, our marketing is hand-to-hand combat, really.
Right.
And so it does make a difference. Man, you're full of good ones today. I'm going to use that one too.
We're gonna keep writing this down.
I
And yeah,
feels like I studied, but don't worry, I did. I did not. Andy, you got any other questions for these folks? If not, I got one.
I can't compete with you, Glenn. I mean, you got great questions.
Well, to be fair, we had to do a pre-record podcast earlier today, and Anthony dominated. So I had a chance to rest.
He showed me up to.
Yeah.
But it's just what I love about this business, and every time I think I'm ready to kind of like slow down, I just fall in love with it more because like you just inspired me. This conversation inspired me because I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't know the brand, I didn't know anything about the brand, and we do extensive research before we get on these programs. And in my 5 hours of extensive research before I came on, I didn't really understand it, which is not true because I didn't even know what was going on. I go, "Hi, everybody," and then we go.
Today.
So, I honestly don't know anything about the brand. And so it's just fascinating to get a real life, real time experience. Like the pickleball court blew my mind. Like you're thinking about pickleball and just the way you're going about the brand. It's really interesting. And I learned something today and I really, I didn't think I could learn anymore. And you learn every day and you're still both so kind of excited. I can see it in your voice. And also I think what's the most important thing in building a new brand, and it is the most important word, I think, of business. But because everybody's trying to kill each other for the client, trust. We talk about trust, but you have a legacy of trust. You literally have a legacy of trust. The name that you have in this business is bulletproof. And that, if I'm going to spend X amount of dollars on a brand that's relatively new, that legacy of trust walks in the door before anything else. And that, to me, is inspiring that you're still reinventing yourselves.
yeah, appreciate that. No, yeah, we try to lead with that, and we agree. We believe in it, and 5 brands. And again, this is the best brand yet. We really believe it.
Yeah, awesome. So, Mimi, one question that has nothing to do with what we've been talking about. There's a lot of family businesses in our industry, and I always think it's like weird when you call the family member by that first name. How bizarre was it calling your grandfather Jack? Because
so weird.
Past that, so weird, right? So, what is that like?
Yeah, no, it's interesting because my whole life I called him Papa Jack. And so
Right,
that was the, grandfather name. And then
Yeah.
it was, I mean, the second I came into the business, I had to switch to Jack, and it was a challenge. It was definitely an adjustment.
Did he ask you to, or you decided to?
I decided to. I knew it was the right thing to do.
It'd be
but
really weird to
he didn't
be
have
like,
to ask
"Oh,
me."
Jack."
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. No, it wasn't a
But
adjustment.
even like talking about like he didn't say my grandfather, she said Jack, which again is a little kind of weird because I'm like, no, he's grandpa, call him grandpa.
What are you doing?
But on the other hand, I think it kind of takes away from you if you do that. So I think that's
it's the same thing. It's why, like, my other friends, I never called the other people dad and that sort of stuff, because I think it does devalue it and makes it appear as nepotism as opposed to a fully earned position.
I love the fact, I love competition more than anybody. I compete against, I'll compete against anybody for anything. I just love competition. And I love the fact, I'm just thinking, you guys walk into a room and someone else just walked out of the room trying to sell a brand. And I'm not talking about the big, big brands. I'm just talking about someone that's kind of trying to kind of compete with you guys. And you're like, oh, all right. Oh, by the way, we have 5 brands that we did. And it's like, it's just mind blowing. It's just like nobody can compete with that.
Right.
That's just that to me is just like a superpower.
Not only that, but they're such good brands, all the major companies had to buy them.
Right, exactly. That's my point. It's like, who can walk in a room with a new brand and like have a better story than you? So it's fascinating.
Yeah, it's like Marriott obviously bought one, IHG bought one, Choice bought one.
Which ones were they? Name the 5.
Well, Value Place, which became Woodspring, is now owned by Choice Hotels.
Right.
Okay.
Candlewood is IHG.
Right.
Summerfield is
Hyatt House now.
Hyatt House.
Okay.
Yep.
Residence Inn, of course.
I got a question for you. One last question, Jim. Sorry. In 1996, did you open a Summerfield Suites in Atlanta?
It wouldn't have been 90. It would have been earlier than 96.
because I feel like
How do
one of
you
the
how do
first
why do you
business
say
trips.
that?
The reason why I say this is one of the first business trips I ever went on, and this is how I fell in love with this business. I was working for Hotel Business Magazine, and I got a chance to go to a hotel company's. They put us up in the hotel during the Olympics in the summer of '96, and we got to go to the Olympics. And for some reason, I think it was that brand, but I can't 100%
Well,
remember.
sure. We're at our Sandy Springs property that we're converting is on Barfield Road, and the one you're talking about, which you're right, there's a Summerfield Suites just up the road
Yeah.
on Mount Vernon, in the perimeter area of Atlanta, and that makes all the sense in the world. I was a director of sales at that property when it was announced that the Olympics were coming to Atlanta, but wasn't there
That's
right during that time. But yeah, right on. Great memory.
So with all the travel you guys do, I have a question for you. What is, I know what Glenn's pet peeve is, but what is your pet peeve when you go into a hotel? What is the one thing that's, if it's not compliant to your need, is your pet peeve that you get kind of upset about?
For
Anybody?
me, for sure, it's lack of cleanliness, for sure. It's just I mean, that to me is such a basic. And that's frankly what Jack built the Value Place brand on is clean. A clean room, clean hallways, clean lobby, so important. So I think that to me, yeah, lack of cleanliness is definitely a big pet peeve.
Yeah, two things for me. I think the first is the people issue, just the lack of training, that initial greeting, just the respect. This Marriott I'm staying at in Perimeter Center right now, man, whoever's teaching them here, they got it all figured out because the attention to detail and the way that they make you feel special is awesome. The second thing I'd have, which we touched on earlier, is Wi-Fi. Consistent, strong, reliable Wi-Fi would be a real issue today.
And what's your pet peeve, Glenn?
My pet peeve? I have so many of them, but I think my number one is why can't we get the faucets to come into the middle of the sink, and why do I have to keep banging my hands against porcelain every time I try to wash my freaking hands somewhere?
I saw him go. I saw him literally melt down in front of me over that on one of the podcasts, and he also really enjoys resort fees. Those are his favorite.
Oh my God, dude, I love them so much.
You want to tell him the little dirty secret about resort fees?
Yeah, Anthony created those things, so we have to fight with each other about it all the time.
By the way, Jack invented the market. We talked about that earlier too. That was that was a Jack invention.
He invented free
Wow.
breakfast.
Free breakfast and the market.
And the market, yep.
Well,
so where did that run with Embassy Suites when they were doing where they did free breakfast? It was like it was the same time. Like, how did that work?
Well, it would have been mid '80s, so I don't know what Embassy Suites when that would have been, but probably pretty close.
No, Embassy Suites didn't open till about around then.
Yeah.
Really,
And they put it on steroids.
One other thing that I thought was great about Jack DeBoer is that he really understood the value. In fact, created the name Value Place for one of the brands. But what I liked about Candlewood is they didn't want to nickel and dime you, so like a can of Coke was a quarter. And I remember that was like a huge selling point that really set up the whole tone for the brand. And when Value Place first started, it's like, hey, we'll sell you the coffee maker. We'll sell you some dishes. It's a really, really cheap price, but at least that way we don't have to deal with it. You get what you want and only pay for what you want. So two things that I really took away from him. And Mimi, I'll tell you, I had the opportunity to interview him one time back before I was doing No Vacancy when I first started podcasting. And it was such an honor to be able to talk to such a legend and be able to spend some personal time with him for an hour. So I really will always remember that.
And he'd be I just have to add, he would be very, very proud of Mimi's leadership in this organization. She's doing a hell of a job, and it's fun to be part of the team.
That's wonderful. Well, congratulations.
Can I ask one more question?
Mm-hmm.
What is it like coming in as the founder's granddaughter, being a female in a male-dominated space, and kicking ass? How is that?
Awesome. I love it. I mean, I feel like I wake up every day having found my true passion. I don't feel like I'm working a day in my life. I love it. I am here to make waves in this industry, with Jim. Jim and I are definitely the power duo. I'm learning so much from him. I'm surrounding myself with what I feel are the best of the best advisors in the industry, and definitely always trying to stay humble, that I know I don't know everything yet. I know I'm young, and have a lot to learn still, but have a phenomenal team. I think we have the right team, the right product. We're in the right place in the right segment. And yeah, we're here to absolutely invent this whole new segment. Like I said,
Did you
flexible
go to
lodging. So
did you go to hospitality or business school?
I did not. I actually studied math,
Went to
believe it or
school at
not.
Jack,
Ivy
right?
League school.
Yeah.
Well, I got that out of the gate. Okay, I'm not going to answer.
So, all right, here's a picture of Jack that
There
I
he
just
is.
Yeah,
just put up.
great
Let-
shot.
did he make it to 90? Mimi?
Did.
He made it to 91.
90. Amazing.
And I see a resemblance there, Mimi.
Yeah.
There you go.
And I'll tell you, was bursting with energy his entire life. The
You
man
can
could
see in
not
his face.
stop.
You can see in his face.
He would have kept going. He would have invented 10 brands if he could. He would have
Well,
kept going.
and a
for
guy
sure.
that, you know, flew Learjets, had yacht and all that, but boy, he could relate to the common person's experience and hotel experience, which was a real treasure.
Beautiful. And speaking of hotel experience, I think they're going to try to kick me out of here, Anthony. I don't think I have my
But
special
having a math degree with the personality that you have, Mimi, oh my God, you're going to set the world ablaze.
Oh, thank you.
Superstar.
Appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And if you all want to hang out backstage for a minute, we'll wrap up with you after we close out the show. Thank you so much. We
Great.
really
Thanks.
appreciate it. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're
Oh,
having
I
us.
did it again.
No worries.
All right. 3, 2, 1. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. Be sure to listen to us on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, SoundCloud, wherever you get your shows. We are there. And if you happen to be listening to us right now, why not give us a look? Watch us on LinkedIn. Watch us on YouTube. Watch us on Facebook. Watch us. Older catalog shows at novacancynews.com. Any final thoughts?
That was fun, man. And I love the show. I've never been bored on the show. I just love meeting new people.
Yep.
I love the fact that you know everybody knows you. And I didn't know anything about this brand. And now our audience knows about the brand.
Yep.
And it's fantastic. I'm excited about it.
Yep, I am too. All right, everybody. We will see you here tomorrow. And remember, you've got one life, so blaze on, and
Be kind to yourself.
bye.